I stood in the middle of my Philadelphia penthouse, surrounded by bolts of silk and sketches for my next collection, my heart pounding like a drum in a storm. My name is Loretta Russo, a 58-year-old fashion designer, creator of Russo Couture, a brand that dressed the elite from New York to Los Angeles. My life was a tapestry of hard work, love, and dreams stitched together over decades. But that morning, everything unraveled. My husband Carlo, the man I'd loved for 30 years, was dead. Or so they told me. Worse, they said I killed him. It started with a knock at the door, sharp and insistent, like a needle-piercing fabric. I opened it to find two police officers, their faces grim, badges glinting under the chandelier. Loretta Russo, the taller one said, his voice cold, "You're under arrest for the murder of Carlo Russo." My knees buckled. I grabbed the door frame, my manicured nails digging into the wood. Murder? Carlo? My Carlo? The room spun, my sketches blurring into a kaleidoscope of chaos. I stammered, "There's been a mistake. He's my husband. I'd never hurt him." They didn't listen. They cuffed my wrists, the metal biting into my skin, and led me through the lobby of our luxury building. Neighbors peeked from their doors, whispering, their eyes accusing. The paparazzi were already there, cameras flashing like vultures circling a carcass. "Fashion Queen murders husband," the headlines would scream. I could see it already. My legacy, my brand, my life. Shredded in an instant. At the police station, they showed me the evidence. A burned-out car found near the Delaware River, Carlo's wedding ring in the wreckage, a charred body they claimed was his. They had my fingerprints on a gas can at the scene, a forged note in my handwriting saying I couldn't live with his affairs. "You planned this, didn't you?" the detective sneered, leaning across the table. "Got tired of his cheating, so you torched him." I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. I loved him. I'd never do this. But the evidence was airtight. Or so they thought. I was released on bail, thanks to my lawyer Maria, a sharp woman who'd been my friend since design school. She drove me home, her eyes filled with pity. "Loretta, this doesn't add up. We'll fight this." But I barely heard her. My mind was trapped in the last moment I saw Carlo, 2 weeks ago. He kissed my forehead, his cologne lingering, promising to be back from a business trip in Miami. "Love you, darling," he'd said, his smile warm. Had it all been a lie? Back in my penthouse, I poured a glass of wine, my hands trembling. The silence was deafening. My atelier, once alive with the hum of sewing machines, felt like a tomb. I wandered to Carlo's office, a room he kept locked, claiming it was for business privacy. I'd never questioned it. Why would I? I trusted him. But now, doubt gnawed at me like a moth in cashmere. I grabbed a letter opener, pried the lock, and stepped inside. The room was a shrine to secrets. Bank statements, offshore accounts, emails I'd never seen. My heart stopped when I found a folder labeled Cayman Transfers. Inside were records of $4 million moved from our joint account, dated the day before the car fire. My money, my life's work, gone. And then I saw it, a photo tucked in the folder. Carlo with a woman, her arms around him, both laughing on a yacht. She was stunning, younger, with a diamond necklace that screamed wealth. A note on the back read, "To my love, Victoria. Soon." "We're free." I sank to the floor, the photo slipping from my fingers. Free? Free from what? Me? Our marriage? The life we'd built? I remembered every sacrifice I'd made for Carlo. I turned down a Paris apprenticeship to marry him, worked nights to fund his first business, stood by him through bankruptcies and betrayals. I forgave his late nights, his business trips. Because I believed in us. But this was a knife in my heart, twisted with venom. I was about to call Maria when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Carlo's alive. Check the offshore accounts." My breath caught. Alive? It couldn't be. But the folder in my lap told a different story. I logged into our bank portal, my fingers shaking. The $4 million transfer was real, wired to a name I didn't recognize, Victoria Langston. A quick search revealed her, a Miami real estate mogul, recently engaged to a mysterious entrepreneur. The engagement photo was Carlo, smiling, his arm around her. Rage surged through me, hot and sharp. He wasn't just cheating. He'd faked his death, framed me for murder, stolen my fortune, and planned a new life with her. I heard his voice in my head from a dinner last month when he'd laughed off my concerns about our finances. "You worry too much, Loretta. I've got it under control." Control. That's what this was. He controlled me, played me like a puppet, and now he thought he'd won. I stood, wiping tears from my cheeks. No, he hadn't won. Not yet. I wasn't the weak, trusting wife he thought I was. I'd built Russo Couture from a single sewing machine in a basement. I'd faced critics, rivals, crises. If Carlo thought he could destroy me, he was about to learn how wrong he was. I called Maria, my voice steady. I need a hacker. Someone discreet. She hesitated, then gave me a name. Tony. A private investigator with a knack for digital shadows. I met him in a dimly lit cafe, his face half hidden by a baseball cap. You want dirt on Carlo Russo? It'll cost you, he said. I slid an envelope of cash across the table. Find me everything. Emails, accounts, plans. I want to know where he is. Tony delivered within days. Carlo was in Miami, living in a penthouse with Victoria, planning a wedding that would cement their empire. He'd hired a chemist to create a fake body, used my gas can to stage the fire, even planted my fingerprints. The forged note? His handwriting, mimicked by an expert. Every detail was calculated, cold, cruel. Tony handed me an email Carlo sent to Victoria. Loretta's done. The trial will bury her. We're free to start over. Free. That word again. I clutched the email, my nails tearing the paper. I saw Carlo's smirk, his lies, his betrayal. But I also saw something else, opportunity. He thought I was broken, sitting in my penthouse, waiting for a guilty verdict. He didn't know I was sewing a new plan, stitch by stitch. I started small. I leaked a rumor to a tabloid, anonymous, suggesting Carlo's death was suspicious. The press bit, digging into the car fire. I wanted him nervous, looking over his shoulder. I hired a second investigator to tail Victoria, snapping photos of her with Carlo at Miami clubs, their laughter mocking me. Each photo fueled my resolve. I wasn't just fighting for justice. This was personal. One night, alone in my atelier, I found an old sketch, a dress I designed for our 25th anniversary. Carlo had kissed me that night, whispering, "You're my everything." Lies. I tore the sketch to pieces, letting them fall like confetti. Then I opened my laptop, pulling up Tony's latest report. Carlo's wedding was set for 3 weeks from now, a lavish affair at a Miami estate. Broadcast live for a reality show. Perfect. If he wanted a spectacle, I'd give him one he'd never forget. I leaned back, sipping my wine, a smile curling my lips. Carlo thought he'd written my ending, cast me as the villain in his twisted story. But he forgot who I was. I slammed my laptop shut, the screen's glow fading as my pulse raced. Tony's latest email had just come through, a bombshell that made my blood boil. Carlo wasn't just planning a wedding with Victoria, he'd hired a forger to fake my signature on a will. Leaving everything, my $4 million, my brand, my legacy, to him. The audacity burned me alive. I stood in my atelier, surrounded by mannequins draped in half-finished gowns, their silent stares mocking my naivety. I'd loved Carlo for 3 decades, sewn my dreams into his, only for him to weave this web of lies. But I wasn't his pawn anymore. I was the spider now. I grabbed my phone, dialing Tony. "Meet me at the old warehouse on 12th Street. I said, my voice sharp. "We need to move fast." I threw on a black coat, slipped out into the Philadelphia night, and drove through rain-slicked streets, the city's pulse matching my own. The warehouse, a relic from my early days storing fabric, loomed dark and empty. Tony was already there, leaning against a rusted door, a USB drive dangling from his fingers. "Got something big," he said, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Carlo's not just a cheat. He's a criminal mastermind." He plugged the drive into his laptop, revealing a video, Carlo in a Miami bar, laughing with a man in a cheap suit. The chemist, Tony explained. He made the fake body for the car fire. Cost Carlo $50,000. My stomach churned as Carlo's voice crackled through the speakers, smug and cold. "Loretta's finished. The trial's a lock. Victoria and I will be untouchable." Untouchable. The word seared into me. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. Carlo thought he'd buried me, but every word he spoke was another thread for me to unravel his empire. Tony scrolled through more files. Emails to Victoria detailing the forged will, a contract with a shady lawyer to secure the estate post-trial. Even a plan to sell Russo Couture to a rival brand once I was convicted. "He's betting on you going down quietly," Tony said, shutting the laptop. "What's your play?" I paced the warehouse, my heels clicking on concrete. We hit him where it hurts. His wedding. His new life. I want him exposed, humiliated, in front of everyone. Tony raised an eyebrow. That's bold. Risky. Victoria's got connections. They could come for you. I stopped, meeting his gaze. Let them try. I've got nothing left to lose. Back at my penthouse, I pored over the files. Each revelation a dagger to my heart. Carlo had planned this for years, siphoning money, building a shadow life while I was sketching gowns and hosting galas. I found a photo of us from our 20th anniversary, my smile radiant as he toasted me. To my muse, he'd said. Lies. I crushed the photo in my hand, letting the shards fall. But the pain fueled me. I wasn't just fighting for justice. I was fighting for every moment I'd given him, every dream I'd sacrificed. The next morning, I faced a new challenge. My assistant, Jenna, burst into the atelier. Her face pale. Loretta, the press is outside. They're saying you fled the country. I rushed to the window, spotting news vans clogging the street. A headline flashed on my phone. Murder suspect Loretta Russo escapes justice. My heart sank. Carlo was tightening the noose, leaking lies to make me look guilty. If I didn't act fast, public opinion would bury me before the trial. I called Maria, my lawyer, who was already on damage control. This is Carlo's doing, she said, her voice tense. Someone tipped the press. We need to counter this now. I gripped the phone, thinking of Carlo's smug face in that video. I'm not running. Set up a press conference. Today. Maria hesitated. Loretta, that's a gamble. One wrong word, and you're done. I didn't waver. I'm not hiding. Let's show them I'm fighting. The press conference was a circus, held in a hotel ballroom packed with reporters, their cameras trained on me like rifles. I stepped to the podium. My black dress tailored to perfection, every inch the designer they knew. Flashbulbs popped, questions flew. Did you kill your husband? Where's the money? I raised a hand, silencing them. I'm innocent, I said, my voice steady. My husband's death is a lie, and I'm going to prove it. Someone out there knows the truth. I'm coming for it. The room erupted, but I walked off, head high. The clip went viral, trending on every platform. I'd thrown down the gauntlet, daring Carlo to flinch. But the move came with a cost. That night, my phone rang, a blocked number. I answered, and a woman's voice, smooth as silk, purred through. Back off, Loretta. You don't know who you're messing with. I froze. Victoria. I know exactly who, I shot back. Tell Carlo his time's up. She laughed, low and cruel. You're digging your own grave. The line went dead. Her threat rattled me, but it also lit a fire. I wasn't just facing Carlo now. Victoria was a player. A queen in this game of betrayal. I dug deeper, meeting Tony at a diner to review new evidence. He'd hacked Victoria's emails, revealing her role in the forged will. She's not just arm candy. Tony warned. She's got ties to some nasty people. Offshore accounts, shell companies. They're planning to vanish after the wedding. I leaned forward, my coffee untouched. Then we stopped them before they do. The biggest shock came later that day. Tony handed me a recording from a bug he'd planted in Victoria's office. Carlo's voice filled the room. Colder than I'd ever heard. If Loretta gets too close, we take her out. Permanently. My breath caught. Take me out? I'd known Carlo was ruthless, but this was a new low. Victoria's reply was worse. Don't worry, darling. I've got a guy. She won't make it to trial. I turned off the recording, my hands shaking. They weren't just framing me. They were planning my murder. I sat in silence, the weight of their betrayal crushing me. I remembered a night years ago, Carlo holding me after a failed fashion show, promising we'd rise together. We're a team, he'd said. Now. He was ready to kill me for money. But fear turned to fury. If they wanted a war, I'd give them one. I spent the next days building my arsenal. I contacted a journalist, Sarah, who'd covered my brand for years. I've got a story, I told her, handing over copies of Carlo's emails, careful to keep my source anonymous. Run it when I say. I also met with a retired cop, Frank, who taught me how to spot a tail. If they're coming for you, you'll know, he said. I started carrying a recorder, documenting every move, every call. I wasn't just preparing to expose Carlo. I was preparing to survive. One evening, I found a package at my door, no sender. Inside was a single photo, me at the press conference, a red X drawn over my face. My heart pounded, but I didn't flinch. I tucked the photo into my safe, another piece of evidence. Carlo and Victoria thought they could scare me into silence. They didn't know I was already steps ahead. I opened my laptop, pulling up the wedding invitation Tony had intercepted. The date was 2 weeks away, the venue a Miami estate, the guest list a who's who of high society. Carlo and Victoria wanted the world to see their triumph. I smiled, cold and calculated. They'd get their audience, but I'd be the one stealing the show. Was Loretta Russo, a woman who turned scraps into masterpieces. And this time, I'd design his downfall. I floored the gas pedal, my car tearing through Philadelphia's back streets, the screech of tires drowning out the pounding in my chest. Someone was following me. I'd spotted the black SUV in my rearview mirror minutes after leaving the diner, its tinted windows glinting like a predator's eyes. Victoria's threat echoed in my mind. You're digging your own grave. They weren't just watching me anymore. They were closing in. I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white, and swerved into an alley, cutting the lights. The SUV roared past, but I knew they'd circle back. I had to move. I slipped out, clutching the recorder Frank had given me, its weight a reminder of the stakes. Carlo and Victoria weren't playing games. They'd hired someone to kill me, and I was running out of time. The wedding was 10 days away, my one shot to expose them. But first, I had to survive. I darted through the alley, my breath ragged, and ducked into a dive bar, its neon sign buzzing like my nerves. I slid into a booth, pulling my hood low, and called Tony. They're tailing me, I whispered. I need you to trace that SUV. Now. Tony's voice crackled through, tense but steady. Plate number? I rattled off what I'd glimpsed, my eyes scanning the bar's grimy windows. Got it, he said. It's registered to a shell company tied to Victoria. Loretta, these aren't amateurs. You need to disappear until the wedding. I clenched my jaw. No, hiding's what they want. I'm hitting them harder. He sighed. You're crazy, but I'm in. What's the plan? I leaned back. The bar's jukebox blaring a song Carlo used to hum. The memory stung, him spinning me in our kitchen, promising forever. Now he was planning my funeral. I shoved the thought aside, focusing on Tony's question. We leak more to Sarah, I said. Enough to rattle them, not enough to tip our hand. And I need eyes on that wedding venue. Security, exits, cameras. Everything. Tony paused. You're walking into a lion's den. You sure? I smirked, cold and determined. I'm not walking. I'm storming. The next morning, I met Sarah at a crowded cafe, her notepad ready. I slid her a USB drive, loaded with snippets of Carlo's emails, carefully edited to hide my tracks. This proves the car fire was staged, I said. Run it, but keep my name out. Her eyes widened as she scanned the files. Loretta, this is explosive. You're saying Carlo's alive. I nodded, my voice low. And he's not alone. Dig into Victoria Langston. She's the key. Sarah grinned, sensing a Pulitzer. This hits tomorrow. Stay safe. The article dropped like a bomb, front page news. Russo murder case unravels. Evidence suggests staged death. Social media erupted, hashtags trending, my name dragged through the mud but also lifted by supporters. I watched from a burner phone, holed up in a cheap motel to dodge the tail. Carlo and Victoria would be panicking, their perfect plan fraying. But panic made them dangerous. I knew they'd strike back. That night, I faced a new threat. Frank called, his voice urgent. Loretta, someone's been in your penthouse. Security cams caught a guy, pro job, no prints. He planted something. My heart stopped. A bug? A bomb. I told Frank to sweep the place, my mind racing. If they were breaking in, they knew I was onto them. I checked the motel's locks, my recorder still running, capturing every word. I wasn't just gathering evidence anymore. I was building a shield. Frank's next call confirmed my fears. It's a listening device, he said. High-end, tied to a Miami server. They're tracking you, Loretta. You need to ditch your phone, your car, everything. I swallowed hard, the motel's dim light flickering. Not yet, I said. Let them think they're winning. I'll feed them lies. Frank cursed. You're playing with fire. I laughed, bitter. Fire's all I've got left. I started planting false trails, calling Maria from my phone about fleeing to Canada, knowing they'd hear. Meanwhile, Tony sent me blueprints of the Miami estate. A fortress of glass and marble, security tighter than a runway show. I studied every detail, memorizing exits, camera blind spots. The wedding would be live-streamed. A perfect stage for Carlo's downfall. But Victoria's threat loomed larger. I found a voicemail on my burner phone, her voice dripping venom. Stop digging, or you'll end up like Carlo's car. I saved it, another nail in their coffin. The biggest blow came at dawn. A text from Tony. Victoria's guy is ex-military. Hard to take you out before the wedding. Watch your back. My stomach twisted, but I didn't flinch. I remembered Carlo's arms around me, his promises of love, now replaced by a hitman's shadow. I wasn't the naive wife he'd married. I was a woman forged in betrayal, and I'd fight like one. I moved to a new safe house, a friend's cabin outside the city, and doubled down. I sent Sarah another leak, a photo of Carlo with Victoria, time-stamped after his death. The press went wild, demanding answers. I knew Carlo was watching, his confidence cracking. I pictured his face, pale and furious, as his lies unraveled. But I wasn't done. I had one more move before Miami, a risk that could end me or break them. I called Tony, my voice steady. Get me into that wedding. Guest list, disguise, whatever it takes. I slipped through the Miami Estates service entrance, my heart hammering as I adjusted the stolen caterer's uniform. The wedding was in full swing, music pulsing through the marble halls. Laughter from the elite guests mocking my pain. I'd made it past security, Tony's forged badge my lifeline, but every step felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of snakes. Carlo and Victoria were out there, basking in their stolen victory, thinking I was cowering in a cell or dead in a ditch. Tonight, I'd rewrite their fairy tale into a nightmare. I clutched the USB drive in my pocket, loaded with Carlo's emails, bank records, and that damning video of him plotting my murder. This was my moment. I moved through the kitchen, trays clattering around me, blending with the staff. The ballroom doors loomed ahead, gold-trimmed and guarded. I caught a glimpse of Carlo through the glass, his tuxedo crisp, arm around Victoria, her diamond tiara glinting under chandeliers. My stomach twisted, memories of our own wedding flashing. His vows, my trust, all ashes now. I pushed the thought down, nodding to a guard as I slipped into the control room, where the live stream's tech crew worked. Tony had bribed the tech, ensuring my signal would override the broadcast. I locked the door, my hand shaking as I plugged the USB into the system. The screen flickered, showing the wedding feed, Carlo raising a glass, toasting new beginnings. His voice, smooth as ever, made my skin crawl. To love, to freedom, he said, Victoria beaming. Freedom. From me. From the life I'd built. I hit play, my evidence blasting across the ballroom's massive screens, cutting his speech dead. Gasps erupted as Carlo's emails appeared, detailing the $4 million theft, the forged will, the fake body. The video followed, his voice chilling. If Loretta gets too close, we take her out. Permanently. Guests froze, glasses slipping from hands. Victoria screamed, turn it off, but the tech crew was locked out, my override in control. I stepped into the ballroom, shedding the caterer's apron, my black gown a stark contrast to the white roses. Faces turned, cameras swiveled, the live stream capturing every second. Carlo Russo, I said, my voice echoing. You faked your death, stole my life, and framed me for murder. The crowd parted, leaving him exposed. His face paled, eyes darting like a trapped animal. Loretta, he stammered, you're insane. This is a lie. I held up the forged death certificate, its ink damning. This is your lie. You and Victoria planned it all. I tossed it to a reporter, who snatched it eagerly. Victoria lunged forward, her composure shattered. You jealous hag, she spat. You couldn't keep him, so you ruin us? I met her gaze, unflinching. You didn't just take my husband. You tried to take my life. I pointed to the screen, now showing her voicemail. Stop digging, or you'll end up like Carlo's car. The crowd roared, phones recording, the scandal going global. Carlo grabbed a microphone, desperate. She's a murderer. She's framing me. But his voice cracked, and the guests weren't buying it. I saw Sarah in the crowd, her camera live. Her article already breaking online. I timed it perfectly. Sirens wailed outside, police closing in, tipped off by Tony. Carlo bolted for a side exit, Victoria stumbling after him. But I'd memorized the blueprints. I blocked their path, standing tall. There's no running, I said, my voice steel. You wanted a show? You got one. Police burst through the doors, guns drawn. Carlo Russo, Victoria Langston, you're under arrest, an officer shouted. Carlo froze, his hands raised, Victoria sobbing as cuffs clicked on her wrists. I locked eyes with Carlo. His betrayal a wound I'd carry forever. You thought I was weak, I said, stepping closer, my voice low. But this is my strength. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The crowd watched, silent. As he was dragged away, I turned to the guests, their faces a mix of shock and awe. "I'm Loretta Russo," I said, "and I'm taking my life back." I walked out, cameras flashing, the live stream immortalizing the moment. My heart raced, not with fear, but triumph. Carlo and Victoria were done, their empire of lies crumbling. But I wasn't finished. There was one last act to play. Outside, Tony waited in a van, grinning. "You did it, Loretta. They're toast." I nodded, exhausted but alive. "Not yet," I said. "We make sure they stay down." As we sped into the Miami night, I felt the weight of the USB in my pocket, my recorders still humming. Carlo had tried to erase me, but I'd rewritten the script, and I wasn't done writing. He groaned. "Loretta, that's suicide." I cut him off. "It's justice. Make it happen." As I hung up, I touched the recorder in my pocket, its hum my only ally. Carlo and Victoria thought they'd written my end. They didn't know I was rewriting theirs. I signed the final contract, my pen gliding across the page, each stroke a declaration of freedom. The sale of Russo Couture was complete, my once-cherished brand now in the hands of a young designer I'd mentored, someone who'd carry its spirit forward. I stood in my new studio, a converted warehouse in Philadelphia's gritty heart, surrounded by bolts of denim and sketches for my next venture. A streetwear line for the underdogs, the dreamers, the fighters like me. Carlo's betrayal had burned my old life to ashes, but I was rising, stitching a new future from the scraps. At 58, I was starting over, and it felt like victory. The trial had ended weeks ago. A spectacle that dominated headlines. Carlo and Victoria faced a courtroom packed with reporters, their lies dissected under oath. I sat in the front row, my black dress a silent rebuke, watching Carlo's face crumple as the jury delivered guilty verdicts. 15 years for fraud, conspiracy, and attempted murder. Victoria got 12. Her tear-streaked face a far cry from the smug queen at the wedding. The judge's gavel fell, and I felt a weight lift, the chains of their betrayal breaking at last. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, microphones thrusting toward me. "Loretta, how does it feel to win?" one shouted. I paused, the question sinking deep. Winning wasn't just about justice. It was about reclaiming myself. "It feels like truth," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor." The clip went viral, my words a rallying cry for women who'd been betrayed. Silenced, erased. I didn't seek the spotlight, but it found me, and I used it to shine light on others. Back in my studio, I faced a final ghost. A letter arrived. Carlo's handwriting scrawled across the envelope, sent from prison. My hands trembled as I opened it, his words a mix of desperation and delusion. "Loretta, I'm sorry. I loved you, but I lost my way. Forgive me." I stared at the page, memories flooding back. His laughter in our old apartment, his hand in mine at fashion shows, his lies that tore us apart. I wanted to feel pity, but all I felt was closure. I burned the letter in a metal bin, watching the flames consume his last hold on me. "You don't get to write my story anymore," I whispered, the smoke curling into the air. My new life took shape in the warehouse, its raw edges mirroring my own. I hired a team of young designers, many from tough backgrounds, their eyes hungry for a chance. I taught them to cut patterns, pitch ideas, believe in themselves. One afternoon, a 17-year-old named Marcus handed me a jacket he designed, its bold lines inspired by my story. "You showed me I can fight," he said, his voice shy but firm. I hugged him, my throat tight. This was my legacy now, not gowns for the elite, but hope for the overlooked. The launch of my streetwear line was a quiet triumph, held in a community center, not a glitzy venue. Locals packed the room, cheering as models strutted in vibrant hoodies and ripped jeans. Sarah, the journalist who'd broken my story, covered the event, her article calling me the designer who redefined resilience. I didn't read it. I was too busy shaking hands, laughing with my team, feeling alive in a way I hadn't in years. One evening, as I locked the studio, a woman approached, her face familiar yet strange. It was Jenna, my former assistant, who'd vanished during the trial. Too scared to stay. "Loretta," she said, tears in her eyes, "I'm so sorry I doubted you." I studied her, the sting of her absence still fresh. But I learned something from Carlo's fire. Forgiveness wasn't for them, it was for me. "It's okay," I said, squeezing her hand. "Keep moving forward." She nodded, and we parted, both lighter. I never heard from Victoria again. But rumors reached me. Her empire collapsed. Her allies abandoned her. Her name a punchline in Miami's high society. Carlo's prison letters stopped, his silence a final surrender. I didn't gloat. Their downfall wasn't my joy. My joy was in the mirror, in the woman who'd rebuilt herself, scar by scar. One night, I joined my team for drinks at a local bar, their chatter filling the air. Marcus raised a glass, grinning, to Loretta, who turned betrayal into badassery. They laughed, clinking glasses, and I smiled, my heart full. I thought of Carlo's last words at the wedding. His desperate plea for belief. He'd called me weak, but he'd never seen my strength. I'd taken his lies, his theft, his murder plot, and woven them into something unbreakable. As I walked home, the city buzzing around me, I felt a quiet power. I hadn't just survived Carlo. I transcended him. At 58, I was no longer the wife, the victim, the designer of someone else's dreams. I was Loretta Russo, creator of my own story, and it was just beginning.